In Steven Pinker's book, The Blank Slate, he marshals quite a lot of evidence to make what sounds to me like a really compelling case for the existence of innate propensities, innate behaviours, arguing against the idea that we are born essentially as a tabula rasa, a blank slate, onto which our personality becomes inscribed through the workings of culture and nurture and parenting and those kind of things. He provides all this evidence to show that, for example, through twin studies, through intercultural studies of human universals, that kind of thing. He seems to show that that prior to any kind of cultural effect, we are born with a kind of personality, with natural talents and tendencies and prejudices and all of those kind of things, values. One of the things he points out, of course, which I think is important, is that whilst we might be born with these propensities, we are not prisoners of them. We're not convicts of our convictions, if you like. We have the ability to resist the urgings of those suggestions, those ideas. I think he talks about it himself. He says something to do with the fact that whilst our biology seems to demand that we reproduce, giving us such things as sexual urges, for example, we do have the ability to choose not to. We can choose to be celibate, or we can choose to just not have children. And that, he says, is an example of how, whilst our sort of natural inborn tendencies are maintained, they can be overridden by presumably more recently acquired conscious choices and social and cultural choices. So he has this model of being, if you like, a personality, in which it's largely inscribed through the workings of genetics, but then is moderated or modulated or acted upon according to social and cultural conditions, the context in which one is raised, and the sorts of relationships one strikes with other human beings. What I find interesting is that when he's talking about art, and from what I understand he's had more criticisms about the section on art than anything else, when he's talking about art in the book, he doesn't acknowledge that distinction. He doesn't see that as part of a two-level process, if you like. He draws a correlation between what he sees as a decline in elite art in the 20th century, fewer people signing up for art and humanities degrees in universities, less respect given to arts and humanities academics, decline in the quality of academic literary criticism, that kind of thing. He cites that as a correlate with a rejection of certain forms of what you might call traditional arts approaches, relying on traditional aesthetics, poems that rhyme, pictures that look like things, stories that have clear narrative structures, that kind of idea, which the 20th century has been at pains to move away from, or at least to experiment against. And he says, what he seems to be saying with that correlation is that the possible decline in elite art, as he calls it, has a correlation with those abandonments of traditional forms, because at heart we don't really like traditional forms. That seems to be where it stops. We're all kind of natural-born traditionalists in that sense, and playing games with art is just the privilege of certain. It doesn't say fraudulent, but there's a suggestion that it's a fairly fraudulent activity, a fairly emperor's new clothes type activity. But as I say, what I think is missing from that analysis is the gift that he brings to the moral dimension of of this nature-nurture balance is absent from the analysis of art. There's no sense in which we are allowed to say, in art's terms, yes, these are the aesthetics we're born with, but the urgings of culture and the urgings of consciousness allow us to do other things. That seems to be absent, and in a sense rejected. It's almost as if he's saying that those kind of activities, when applied to art, would be irrelevant and would be fraudulent and would be spurious.